Welcome to She Loves the Grid, where we discuss all things F1. Whether it's happening on the track, in the paddock, or beyond the grid, we'll talk about it all.
And here we go. It's done. Monaco is over. It's in the books. And here we are back at She Loves the Grid. I am Claire.
And I'm Diane. And what a race weekend it was.
It was. I have to say, I was the most stressful weekend I've had watching a race. And I don't know why.
Especially qualifying.
I know. I was like, I think because I was on my balcony and there's, a bunch of it's like right over a public area. I wasn't screaming at the screen that I was watching, but it was a nail biter.
It was a nail biter, to say the least. I feel like even today in the race, once it started raining, lap one with all the cars in the back. I mean, we'll get to all of this, but
Oh my
it
gosh.
was a nail biter all the way through. So, I mean,
And I think what did it for me, we talked about this, was and we'll get to all this, but I think just to talk about it here, it was just I love that there's so many cameras. I love the technology, geek. I love the technology. I love all the angles. I love being able to see the driver's eye view. But this had the most anxiety riddled feeling because it's Monaco,
yep,
because the streets are so narrow, because it's Monaco. And seeing it that you see why they literally are the best drivers in the world. Because oh my gosh, like
yeah,
there's how. And then I was reading out just even during qualifying, trying to read out loud how quickly the speeds are going up to 180 miles an hour down to the 20 something miles an hour, back
yeah.
and forth, up and down as they would hit the corners and come out of the corners. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have a panic attack thinking about it.
I, I
Just
think it's so scary. A couple years ago, I drove from Sacramento in a small car, so it did not have obviously the power or anywhere close to the power of an F1 car, but from Sacramento to Tahoe, and there's a lot of like windy. I think of like the hairpin turn, right? So lots of that going kind of a two-lane road. So last week I was saying how narrow the streets of Monaco are. I was joking and said 4 feet, but today Will Buxton paced it off, and it's 12 paces, which is so narrow. And that's how this road was. And I remember at the time thinking, how do the drivers do this? Because I am white knuckling it and going like 15, 20 miles an hour
12
on these
paces.
little, yeah, on these
To
little
put
turns.
that in perspective, 12 paces. When I was in the marching band, we had to do. Now they may not do this exact step, but kind of on average, we had to do an 8 to 5 step. 8 steps was 5 yards.
Oh,
So 8 steps. The
interesting.
way we walked, 8 steps was 15 feet.
It's very narrow,
Yeah.
very narrow. So yeah, it's amazing. But I think it's also so iconic, and it just seemed especially like I know Sargent yesterday after qualifying was just saying what a thrill it was to drive, on Monaco. Like to drive that track is just, or the circuit, I guess I should
Well,
say.
before I was even a big fan, being there where we went on our cruise and stopped there, I was in awe of knowing that race cars were on that road and how wide. And I get giddy about just watching it going, oh, that's the crosswalk I walked over. I was there because I walked through the casino and it was at
Yeah.
that casino, and
Yes.
not the hairpin turn, but the casino route, that where they kept saying we're going through Casino Drive. That's the road I was on. I was like, I've been there. I've got a picture of a Ferrari and a BMW and a Lamborghini sitting right there, just
Yeah.
parked in front of the casino. Like,
Yeah.
I was there. So, just crazy. But yeah, all right. So yeah, we should probably get into it. But wow, it was just like, and it was just over what? Just not even 2 hours ago. So we're recording on Sunday,
Yeah.
really closely after the race. So I think we're
Very
both
close. Very
still
close
kind
after
of
the race, but it's like, oh my
reeling from
goodness.
it.
Okay, so going backwards, just kind of heading into the week or middle of the week, there was so much stuff happening. So we had a lot of special helmets and then the livery. So McLaren had their 60th anniversary Triple Crown livery. It looked really sharp. So the back was the orange, which is their represents the Indy car that won Indianapolis 500, which, by the way, is later today. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then the white portion represented their car that won in Monaco. And then the black at the very front represented the car, or the whatever, that won Le Mans. So very, very beautiful. I know a lot of their fans were saying, can we just keep this the whole year? Can we just use this the rest of the year? But they probably won't. But let's see, who all had special helmets? Checo did, Lando did, Nick did, Bottas did, Charles and Arthur. So Arthur Leclerc is Charles Leclerc's brother. He drives an F2. I think the curse is also affecting him. I don't think he had a great sprint.
No, I think he was out. He was out at, I think they said lap 9. 9 or 19. It had a 9 in it.
Poor guy. So their helmet, though, I thought was so cool. So it took after their dad's helmet. His was more colorful, but it had these stripes kind of around it. Very old school looking, I think, in a lot of ways. But they did it in the Ferrari colors because obviously Charles drives for Ferrari, but Arthur is also in the Ferrari Academy. And I just loved that. This being their home race, a nod to their dad. It was just, I'm not crying, but
I like the Triple Crown one too, being introduced here with being the Prince of Monaco, and that them allowing the helicopter over, and just the symbolism of the castle and whatnot. I don't know, I just thought that was kind of a neat way to introduce it, was in Monaco.
Yeah, I thought it was definitely beautiful. And then we had the announcement by Aston Martin that they are going to be partnering with Honda starting in 2026. Claire is rubbing her hands if you're not watching.
Yes. So excited.
YouTube. Yeah, she is beyond excited. So that's going to be really kind of interesting. Obviously, Red Bull has Honda right now. Honda said they were jumping out of the F1 game. And so Red Bull is going to Ford for 2026, but Honda's apparently decided to stay in, and Aston Martin has swooped them up. So,
and Aston Martin already has a really fast car. I mean, it's holding its own with Red Bull. So to bring that Red Bull, I'm excited. Really
Papa
excited.
Stroll, remember we've talked about this early on in the season, but Papa Stroll said within 5 years he wants a team that's going to be fighting for the championship. And they've really stepped up that timeline with how well Fernando's doing. Lance is also doing well, not necessarily today, but Fernando has been so consistent. Mm-hmm. They move into their brand new factory, I think this weekend, and they're still working on their wind tunnel. So they are setting themselves up for success in the future. I mean, they are making moves. But one thing,
Fernando's being a great mentor to Lance too, I think.
Oh, I think so. Yeah. How could you not? He's a 2-time world champion. Amazing. But one thing I thought was interesting is when the release came out, I don't know who it was, but somebody must be a president or something at Honda was talking about drivers. And they said, they would not be opposed to Fernando having a seat with Aston Martin when they come on in 2026. And then they said they like the possibility of seeing Yuki in a seat because Yuki came up through the Honda program. But it just made me think, how much say do a Honda or even a Ford or whoever have in who is sitting in that seat? I mean, also, Lance's dad owns the team. And in 2026, who knows? Fernando will be 44. It doesn't sound like he's interested in stopping anytime soon. And especially after this season, why in the world would you want to stop racing? But it just kind of made me think, would they have that much sway that they would?
I guess it depends on if they. I guess it depends on too if they're going to have ownership percentage too into the team.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. So that was very, very exciting. And then for Haas, this was their 150th race.
I did not realize that. That was amazing. I heard that. I was like, how is that? That's amazing.
They're the youngest team on the grid, the newest team. Until 2026 when we get Sauber back, but. Isn't that kind of crazy? So their 150th race. It's been a ride for them. That is for sure, to say the least.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too when you consider. I'd love to see when we've got them slated to be a team spotlight, because with Mercedes, leaving and coming back, but Haas is the newest. Mercedes has some age, but then again, they left.
Yeah.
And they only came back in 2014. So
That's very, very true. And speaking of
interesting.
Mercedes,
Mm.
rumble this week, we're back to the rumors of Lewis.
So many rumors.
I wish I could remember. I don't remember who it was. Daily Mail, somebody, one of the papers in England said, yeah, I know. And it might not be them, so like it could be somebody else, but somebody up there was saying that Ferrari is offering Lewis 40 million pounds or whatever to go to Ferrari. As a Ferrari fan, like I am so tired of the rumors. Like, because who's leaving my team? You can't get rid of my guys. And why would Lewis go to Ferrari? Even in today's race, the Mercedes did better. Ferrari is a shit show the last year and a half for the most part.
I'm going to have to put an explicit rating on the show now.
Oh, sorry. It's one little slip. It's one little slip. I don't cuss that often, golly gee. But
no, you don't. I do.
But that's how strongly I feel about that. So why would Lewis leave Mercedes for that?
I know. It's like, why? It's weird. And he's been with them for so long. It's just,
yeah.
And he said he doesn't seem like the type that cuts bait. I mean, they've been struggling, and he's stuck it out. And he keeps saying, give it some time, and we're waiting for the parts, and it was going to show in Imola, and it's not a Mercedes type show, and.
But and speaking of their parts, like they brought their upgrades this weekend, which a lot of teams didn't bring all their upgrades because Monaco is such a different track. It's so slow. You really are focused on the downforce. But they brought it, and they both finished, in the top 5? They were
fourth and fifth, yeah.
Fourth and fifth.
And considering a lot of it has to do on how you start out, right? The thing is, if you looked at their starting grid, which is, I think, is more important, they were 5th and 8th. Actually, they were 5th and 8th because after
Right.
So they started 5th and 8th and just end up 4th and 5th. That's pretty good, because Russell came up from 8th to 5th. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And at Monaco,
right?
There's no passing in Monaco.
Typically. Yeah, and there was big gaps in the front. It wasn't like they were. I mean, there were periods where they were somewhat close to each other, but for the most part, it seemed like they were fairly decent size. Well, I take that back because I think at one point there was just a second between Russell and maybe Leclerc, and then Russell was fairly close to Hamilton for quite a bit because I think he was wanting to overtake. So I take it back on that part, but
till the end, there's been a gap. But it's still the thing is that like they passed, they got ahead, and they advanced, which is pretty. Yeah, does a lot for. And considering the race with the rain and everything else that ended up happening. So
exactly. But they had new side pods. So I posted a picture of that on our socials because it's like, cool. Oh my gosh, actual side pods for Mercedes. And then they had some front suspension things. It's kind of hard to talk about it. I
thought that was cool though. The F1 TV did talk about that, how they actually took it and raised up the suspension.
Yeah.
Oh, the front tires. And I think that probably really helped out with the control, and it probably helps them out with a lot more with their and the steering and being able to maybe not lock up so much.
Yeah. And as far as like how far that went, it wasn't, like where it was initially put into the car versus where it is now, just slightly on top of the front wing that comes down. But what I thought was interesting is how they were saying, like, it looks minor, but that is absolutely not a minor change.
It wasn't.
There's so much work that has to go into it. You have to modify the chassis. There's like, they had a short amount of time because they were getting that ready for Imola. So between Miami and then Imola, they had to do all of that. They have to put it back in a wind tunnel. They have to see how it performs. So you think like, oh, no big deal. It just moved from here to here. Huge deal.
And they had to do it without spending a ton of money because of cost cap.
Very
so they
true.
were having to do it with the parts that they had without having to manufacture completely new parts and try to modify their parts versus manufacture brand new parts.
Yeah, very, very true. And I never got around to listening. One of their engineers did a little video talking about how it's not ideal to bring upgrades to Monaco, but they didn't really have a choice. But I never listened to the rest of it. So I'm excited to see them in Barcelona to see, like, is there anything else? How does it perform on a track outside of, a track like Monaco? So we'll see. That could have been what Mercedes needed to put them back in I mean, not necessarily the fight for the constructor, but put them back in the fight for the top 2, 3.
Yeah, they showed well, which is nice,
They
right? I mean,
really
that was good. So
They really did. And then speaking of upgrades, I listened to an interview with Zach Brown this week, and he says they have more upgrades coming for it's either Austria or Silverstone or maybe both. Like I couldn't really tell. But anyways, he also said they're making more personnel changes. So we know that it kind of seemed to come out of the blue, but a couple months back, they made some changes. And he said he wasn't ready to announce it yet, but they'll announce it soon. And those people will be joining them within the next 9 months. But he really thinks that they are going to be in such a good place by the end of this year. They're already working on their 2024 car. So they're on the we're thinking ahead mode. So
that's interesting because you kind of I don't see a lot of him in the press like complaining or making excuses or whatnot. I know a lot of that's kind of dramatized for the show, but you just don't see much of him out
Zach?
there. So Zach, I haven't seen much of him.
Well, also, I think this week we haven't seen a ton of him because of the Indy 500, or maybe the last couple weeks because they've got 4 drivers in the Indy 500 this afternoon.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I don't even think he came. Yeah, I know they have an office in Indianapolis, so I'm sure he just stayed close to home.
That's a good point.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, I feel like we hear from Zach a lot, but not lately. You are right about that.
Not lately, yeah, but that's probably why. That's probably more of it.
Yeah, and then what else? Williams had their rear wing was deeper and steeper.
Yeah, they talked about that. They talked about some changes on that. I don't know if it really they didn't really talk about how that really impacted them because their performance wasn't worse or better this week, but they did talk a little bit about.
During practice, Alex was actually the fastest on
that's true.
The straight, but I mean, the race and the rest of it, you're 100% right. But
I mean, it's kind of hard to tell in Monaco too, right? I mean, that's like I said, Monaco. It'd be interesting. It's Barcelona, but what are we going to see in Barcelona?
Yeah, and I don't know if they'll keep that same. I don't know. I mean, that was for the downforce, so I don't know if they'll keep that for Barcelona or not. But the thing I was most excited about for Williams this week is they announced a contest for a Gulf livery back in Singapore. And this is so my bad because right now I'm remembering I wanted to send you pictures of these because I was absolutely obsessed 2 years ago. Gulf was a McLaren sponsor and they came out with a special livery for Monaco. And the moment I saw it, I was in love. It was amazing. I wanted merch and I was working and I thought, I'll come back and do that. The shirts were gone. It was all gone. Years later, I'm still trying to find that shirt and can't anywhere. So anyways, they've come up with 4 different designs. They're all beautiful. And you can go and vote. So go to Williams, go to their website. You can vote. They do, they're pitting 2 cars and 2 cars. So this week you vote for between a Heritage and I can't remember the other one. And then next week you vote between the 2. And then the final 2, you'll do another vote. So I will be buying Williams merch this year because I will be buying a Gulf livery shirt. So I'm excited. I wish they would run a Gulf livery all the time. I think they do such a great job with those. So that was that. Yeah. Anyways,
into the weekend. We didn't even talk about how our weeks were. My week was a little crazy before we get into the race because I'm prepping for vacay since you're coming.
Yes. I
know. That was my week.
Me too. Work was busy because for my work, we start a new fiscal year June 1st. I'll be gone. So just trying to wrap up a whole bunch of stuff. And then because we're starting a new fiscal year. There's different projects that I'm on that are kicking off, and I'm like, well, sorry, I'm gone. So other than that, it's just been spending time with my dogs because somebody will be here with them. But I just want to. My oldest dog is like 15. He's 15 or 16. We don't know. So just wanting to spend as much time with them and get ready and packing and all that good stuff. So.
Because you're going to be here by the time we were talking about that. Because the way we publish, we record on Sundays, which is we're doing now, and then I get everything ready, and it publishes by 9 a.m. Berlin time, and I think you arrive at 7 a.m. or so Berlin
7 or 8,
time, something like that. So you will arrive before the podcast publishes, so before anybody can even hear what we're talking about. Like,
we'll be together, which is crazy because it's the first time since we started the podcast that we will actually be in the same place. So. Sorry for all the content that's going to be hitting our social media this week.
Oh, we haven't seen each other in a few years, so I'm so excited.
I know. That's even crazier to say out loud. Holy moly.
I know. And since I lost all my weight, so
I know. All new pictures. All new pictures.
And the crazy weekend that it was.
I know. So practices, I don't know. We don't have to talk a lot, but there were definitely some crashes. We had Carlos crashed in FP2. I was like, he was just so good.
I mean, the only thing it gave us was the opportunity for it not to be a blowout 1-2 Red Bull podium.
Yeah.
I mean, at least not in practice, but at least in the qualifying, right? I mean, at least that I jumped into qualifying, but
that's okay. But I agree with you. Yeah, in practice, Carlos crashed, and then McLaren did break their curfew on Saturday.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Friday night. But I don't know what they did. So they must have just been tweaking things because it obviously wasn't anything that caused any kind of a grid penalty or anything like that. So they had that. And then towards the end of FP3, we all know that Hamilton crashed. And so you know how they use the crane to pick him up, move him?
I had so much fun taking pictures of all that.
Toto was pissed. He was so mad because we talked about the side pod changes. We talked about the front wing. They have also made some changes to their floor, but it's been pretty much kept under wraps. And then the crane takes the car up and everybody's seeing the floor of the car.
And everybody's talking about it all over social media. Look at the floor. Look at the floor. Look at the floor.
And same with
Red Bull. My gosh.
Yeah.
Same with Red Bull. Yeah. And I'm sitting here going, I didn't realize it was completely solid underneath the cars.
Yeah. But I know for sure that he didn't know about Checo, that happening to his car in qualifying, that, it was raised up on a crane. So he's like, I didn't see that. But he's like, why? The session was over. Lewis ended the session FP3 with the red flag. There was only a couple minutes left. Why did they not just put that on a truck and bring it back to us? Like, what was the point of that? So, but then at the same time, he said, don't go after the marshals or whatever. Everybody's doing the best that they can. He just
Speaking of the marshals and the stewards, I am fascinated by the fact that they were talking about the commentators, that they practice, I think they said 6 weeks prior to the race. They get out there and they start practicing how to do that. And if you really pay attention, there were cranes littered all over the racetrack and all across it, because they're ready to be able to just boop and pop those cars up and out to be able to get them off quickly. So it was pretty fascinating. And it was, I forget whose car it was Checo's or whose, because there was the different crashes there at the beginning. But one of them crashed right in front of Aaron Senna's building. So that building there at the end that I took the pictures of, that was his building that he lived in, right up until the time that he passed away, and the crash that we covered, and the Mercedes spotlight. Or well, not the Mercedes spotlight, but when he crashed away, when he passed away,
in Imola?
Yeah. So he was living in Monaco, and that was actually the building, that apartment building. He lived in that building.
Got it. Okay.
It was like the car kind of floating in front of.
That's so interesting.
I posted it on our social about that, but that's where he was living. when he passed away.
Okay.
I was like, well, that's
Cool.
an interesting. I was like, fun fact. Well, it's not fun. I'll just put interesting fact.
Yes. Not a
That
fun
was
fact
fun.
for sure.
But yeah, it was fascinating that they were talking about how much they train to be able to, because it's like they, because so many of the other races that I've seen so far, that when you have a red flag, it takes forever to get the car out, and they're like in strapped and it's up and out of the way so quickly.
It's
It's
amazing.
fascinating. Yeah. So the
It's so
Monaco, man, they know they've got it down to a science.
they
And
really
I
do.
really paid attention how many cranes they had lining the streets.
How many did you count them?
No, but
Oh,
I did pay attention that they had a lot of them. I
I
shouldn't
was just
say.
curious. I
It was
know
numerous.
I did see him. Like I know there's one by the hairpin, but I love that because like you said, we can get them out of the way and move on with the race. Like it's so narrow, you just don't want cars, obviously coming up and smashing into somebody else. But anyways, I don't
That
know.
was
Okay.
interesting about how that was like. I was wondering how many times they were just like, the other teams were just like, let's measure that and see what they're doing.
Oh, they all were. Absolutely. They all were. And Adrian knew he's probably having a heart attack on the pit wall for Red Bull. Like, no, not my floor. Not my floor. Oh, poor Adrian Newey. Well, it'll just give him something else to work on for next year after everybody starts copying.
But there was a couple of things in there. There was talking about some issues in practice between that and I think Max had some struggles and
Oh, Max, totally. Yeah. Well, they said that for FP1, they tried a different type of setup. So I don't know what that was. I'm sure something to get more downforce or whatever. But clearly it did not work out the way they thought because neither one of them looked great in FP1. And then they reverted back to whatever they had done, or they switched it up for FP2. And then they came out and were back in their usual Red Bull form. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know much more about talk about practice, but qualifying. Holy cow! Like nail biter.
That
Just
Q1 was ridiculous. It was so intense, and you were losing your mind.
I was. I don't think I've posted yet on Facebook about watching F1 and live, and I was just like, I had to, because it was just, it was killing me. It was killing me.
And like you
I'm
started
ahead of you. I'm ahead of you, but like we figured out like 20 or so seconds, and I'm just like, oh, I can't say anything to you.
Yeah. No.
It's just exclamation points.
That's all I get is like 3 exclamation points when Checo crashed. But that happened so early in Q1. I forgot to look, but I feel like that happened really, really early. And like you said, though, now listen, I love Checo. Like I would have loved to seen him fighting for a repeat.
I would love to have been Max had been on the cash, but
I mean, every time. But like, but Checo, like, oh, that was a little bit heartbreaking. I could not believe it. So
I think they like, it's one of those things like he got jinxed because of all the hype. Oh, he's a street racer and he won last year. Da, da, da. I'm like, just shut up.
Maybe people jinxed him. But what was even crazier to me is like during that red flag, like you had your top 3 were Norris, Piastri, and Zhou.
I know.
Top 3 for during that red flag. I took a picture of it because I was like, I literally cannot believe right now this is our top 3 for Q1. Like,
could you imagine if that's like how it ended? And it's like, and that's one of those things where I talk about the whole strategy about these teams that wait till the last minute to push their racers out. It's like, what if it ended that way?
Right. I mean, you can't end qualifying under a red flag, but still, like, it could have been like, who knows? 1,000 things could have happened. And Sainz, once again, he was in the drop zone in Q1, and he didn't pop up until the very end. I was losing my mind. My boyfriend is looking at me because I'm like, what the hell?
I know. I'm sitting there going, I'm like, Diane's going to be losing it when she sees this. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I was so mad. And I kept like, I guess, deep breathing and stuff. And I didn't realize I was doing it. But I'm like, Carlos. Nick DeVries made it into Q2, which was pretty awesome. And guess who ended second place in Q1?
Your global treasure.
My global treasure, Yuki, was in second place in Q1. Oh, I
So
was so
exciting.
excited. Oh, Yuki. But who was out? Perez, obviously. Zhou, both Haas's, K-Mag and Hulkenberg, and then Logan Sargent.
Oh, poor Logan. I think you too. Oh my gosh. Just
At least it seemed to calm down a smidge.
I did, but still in Q2 I was starting to worry because again it started out kind of slow and you're like you just never know. After Q1 I was just like, guys, let's not risk it. Let's just get out there and do our thing.
Exactly. Yep.
And it still was a little topsy-turvy, not as topsy-turvy as Q3 though.
No,
Q3.
Not as topsy-turvy. But Lando, here's my thing. Lando's so proud of him this week. And he does seem to do really well at Monaco, but he was on it. Like he was doing so good. And so in Q2 he grazed the barrier. He was like, and I was like,
they kept taking like measurements, like that car was 24 centimeters. That one was 14 centimeters away. That one wasn't 14. That one hit it.
He kissed that barrier.
He kissed that one.
The good thing was because I was like, no, this can't be happening to Lando. Like he's been doing so good. But then he was able to get back to the pits. And his time was actually good enough to go on to Q3. So he wasn't out. And that team had to work a miracle, and they totally did. So major props to the McLaren mechanics.
Amazing.
Because they got him out, not right at the start of Q3, but at that point, who cares if you even start 10th? That's good. But they did get him out. So huge props to Lando's team. But very quickly, out in Q2 was Bottas, Nick DeVries, Alex Albon, Stroll, who had a rough weekend, and then Piastri was out by 0.02 of a second. So
isn't that crazy? 0.02 of a second.
0.02 of a second.
And McLaren had something on Twitter about that, I think it was, where they put in how close, they put like a picture that showed how many seconds they had and like how he went out and then when he went back in, just how much time. It was so close. And when he came out in Q2 and then to be able to make it back into Q3, the timing, it's pretty miraculous how quickly his team worked.
Insane. A couple times F1 TV cut to them in his pit, and they were working furiously to get that done. So huge props.
It was pretty amazing.
But Q3, especially the end of Q3, oh my gosh. So Ocon, lap of a lifetime for him. He was at the top for a few seconds. But I literally, because I have really become an Ocon fan this year. I really like him. I think personally, he seems very cool. And I literally jumped off my couch. I screamed and jumped off the couch. And the Alpine posted something about him getting third. And I just mentioned that. And they replied and they're like, we love the passion. Like, yes. I was so excited.
Yeah.
But then Charles came through and Charles at the top. And honestly, to be 100% honest, I was like, please do not take pole. He's been on pole the last 2 years, did not finish the first year. Last year, Ferrari screwed him over with the strategy. I was like, just not pole. Like, I'm sorry, Charles, but I had to do it. Then Fernando came through.
And I was like, yes, Fernando. Yeah. I was so excited. And then he was holding it. I
feel like the whole world, though, rejoiced. Like, do you not feel like there was a collective, cheer from the entire world?
And then it was just like, it was such a good time, too. And then Max comes out, and I saw this thing that F1 did that showed the two overlaid the cars. And, he was just like, it was like, oh, and the commentators, he's not doing well. He's come out hard. He kissed the wall. I'm like, oh, yes. And I'm like, he's going to pull it off. He's just going to do it. He's going to do it. And then he did it. I was like, and see, I'm not going to cuss because I want to, because I did a lot. I was like, Of course, my partner, he's over there. Yes, Max. I'm like, fight me. Oh, you don't even follow F1 like I do.
Yes.
Go away.
Exactly. No. So, Max ended up on pole. But it stop there, the drama for qualifying,
Oh.
because like right after they finished, that's when we saw where Charles was under investigation for impeding Lando in the tunnel. And
Yes.
we find out shortly after the race that Charles got a three grid place penalty. So he started in 6th place. That moved Ocon up to 3rd, Carlos to 4th, and Lewis to 5th. But my very first thought was, what did Javi not say to Charles? We know, so Javi, if you're not aware, is Charles' engineer. They have had many instances where they've shared Charles' radio, where he has been frustrated with Javi because Javi has not told him that there's traffic coming up behind him or what have you. And you could, in previous races, you could hear Charles, and not necessarily the race, sometimes it's in qualifying or whatever, but you could hear the frustration in his voice. Like, Javi, you have to tell me, you have to communicate with me. This morning, I heard the radio because I was like, I didn't see anything coming from Charles because I'm sure he probably didn't want to throw Javi under the bus. But my first thought was, Javi never told him. Javi did not say anything. This morning, I hear the radio. As Charles is going through the tunnel, Javi is talking. And he's talking and he's talking. And he's like, you're P2, and giving him data. And Max is on a fast lap, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, you see Lando come up beside him. No mention at all. So what is that pit wall doing that they are not noticing that there's another driver coming up on a fast lap? Because as good as Lando did, he could have been higher. He was on a fast lap and nothing. So because
there's like, because of GPS and because of Monaco, it's like, yeah, but you could tell that he was coming into the tunnel. You can see that. And
but also the race isn't over. Like, Charles may have crossed the line, but there's other drivers still going. So I do get the GPS thing. That's a very good point. But I just feel like, and yes,
well, that's where you need to be extra cautious then. You know where the dead areas are, and you know he's in the tunnel and someone's coming into the tunnel. That's when you need to be more cautious.
Yeah. I felt terrible because I felt like once again, the team screws over Charles. And to come back from 6th, is that where he finished? Did they finish 6th and 8th?
Let's see. 6th and 7th.
6th and 7th. Okay. Yeah, so he started there and
sorry. That's the driver standings. I'm sorry, that's driver standings. They're 6th and 7th right now.
The driver standings? What the hell? Yeah. Sorry, I'm a potty mouth today. It was intense, people. I'm telling you.
What's up with you? That's not your norm.
I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
This
Charles
makes me mad.
6th and Carlos is 8th. You're right. 6
yeah. Okay. 6 and 8. That's what I thought. Criminy. All right. Well, listen. On to the race because
let's go.
What I think is so interesting is
we're almost at 40 minutes. We're all right. So much
we're doing
stuff.
good though for 40.
I know.
For 40 minutes. But okay. Here's my thing. We started the same order. Starting order: Max, Alonso, Ocon. That's how it finished. But everything in between is not as simple as it sounds.
No. No.
Especially after the rain. But on that first lap, that hairpin turn, all those people in the back, it was like they were at a dead stop. And they were all like bumping into each other.
There was so much, and then there was like so much, can you do that? Can they do that? Like, you know how you're supposed to do this? Come on, you know what the rules are. Like, oh my gosh.
Yep, they were. But because of all that little bumping, Stroll ended up with a puncture. So that just started off his. Sargent was hit by a Haas. They were all over the place and aggressive today. Perez went in. Hulkenberg went in. Zhou went in. Like, that's like 5 or 6 cars, right? Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 or 6 cars went in straight away after the first lap because of all of that stuff that was happening in the back. I mean,
yep.
And remember from last week, that is the slowest corner in all of F1. They're going 27 miles an hour, but they weren't even going 27. They were like 3 miles an hour, all stopped right there
And-
trying to get around that.
And the commentators are like, "Oh, there's bigger cars now, and they're heavy cars." Yeah, and they know that. And there's a lot of cars, so they need, they're all trying to get their position.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Something's got to give. Something's got to give, or it's gonna be all. It's either all or none at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there was a lot of aggressiveness just throughout the race. Like for sure, Haas, like it was drama city for them. I feel like they were super aggressive in a lot of ways. They had a lot of contact with other cars. Hulkenberg got a 5-second penalty for causing an incident. I think it was on that first lap. And then he got another 5-second penalty because he didn't serve the penalty properly. Like, so we had a lot of
I don't know how he ended up he ended up finishing above Logan still. I don't know how. And because Magnussen did not finish, but Hulkenberg still finished above Sargent.
That's interesting because I feel like he was in a lot of things. K-Mag was also very aggressive. Like, he overtook Sargent kind of in a very aggressive manner. I think he had a little bump with Sargent prior to actually getting around him. Like that was his second attempt when he got around him. When it started raining, okay. They say that Monaco is slippery to begin with, but then when that rain came down and those cars were on those slicks, not good. So K-Mag was kind of like slipping and sliding.
Oh, yeah.
And
he waited forever to go and put on the intermediates. Like what was up with that? Like it's like he just stayed on the slick. So
and I have no idea why, because he was losing it. And then he was so close to the pits and he went into the wall. And so he was able to make it in and he got new tires, but the crew, they were not ready for the front wing. So they're doing the tires, and then you see one of the pit guys running over to the side to grab a wing and bring it back. And it takes time to put those on. I mean, they weren't fighting for the lead or anything, but still.
No. But it's still unacceptable. They knew the wing was damaged. I mean, the second you saw that with Red Bull, you saw that with Ferrari. The second Ferrari had to take it out, put it up, take it back out again. But as soon as the wing is damaged, you see the pit crew immediately go grab it, go stand in position and wait.
And the only thing I think is because it happens so close to the pit entry that maybe they didn't realize. But be prepared, people. Like, where's the communication? There's none. And then they put the full wets on his car. So did we talk about this last week? The full wets? I know I did a video for it before Imola because the full wet tires are now different. They do not have the heated blankets anymore. So they supposedly, I can't say they go on cold because they supposedly heat up very quickly. But on that very first turn, K-Mag kind of went real deep.
Way off. Yeah. In fact, when we talked about the tires, we did our tire segment, we didn't talk about the heaters. We didn't talk about how they use heated blankets. And so we didn't talk about that difference that the full wets don't have the heated blankets.
Well, not anymore. So that's new. That was just going into place for Imola.
Change. Okay.
Yeah, so the changes that were going into effect in Imola, which never happened, was the cars, the teams only have 11 tires instead of 13 to choose from throughout the weekend. So they eliminated 2 sets of tires.
I remember that.
Then these wet tires are no blankets. It's part of their sustainability as part of it. So yeah, they just go on. And in testing, they said that the tires retained heat better than when they had the blankets. But I don't know. I mean, Kevin went off, but he also went off in that area several times during the weekend. So maybe we can say it's the tires.
Makes me think of like the big 18-wheeler, skid areas. I was like,
oh, yeah, he did go way off. So, and you said he didn't finish. I don't think I realized he didn't finish.
And he's marked as a do not finish. He only did 70 laps. He didn't do. Yeah, he didn't. Yeah,
blocked it out. I didn't.
So Lance did 53. He did 70, and then there's a handful that did 76. So they were lapped twice. Started with Yuki, Checo, Nico, and Logan, and then everyone else did the full.
Yeah, Max was lapping.
Actually, not everybody else. There's a couple that only did 77, and then Carlos and Up did the full 78.
Okay. Yeah. Max was lapping people by lap 30. So we'll get to that in a second. But Sargent, we talked about him. So he just struggled. I think at one point, I don't know if it was tire degradation. I don't remember if he started on a medium or what tire he was on. Well, he went into the pits at the beginning, so I don't know if they put him on a hard or what. But at at one point, well, we know K-Mag got past him because I talked about that, and then right away it was like Stroll passed him and then Perez passed him. What else? When it started raining, he hit the wall, but he was able to keep going. And then the poor guy got a penalty for speeding in the pits. So just not his day. Not his day at all. And I don't really know, like, where did Albon finish up? Towards the bottom, I think. But I don't remember seeing a whole lot with Albon in this race.
Albon finished 14th.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah. Just not, I guess not
Poor
for that.
Poor Checo went 5 times in the pit.
That does not surprise me. Checo had
tire changes and
I feel like for Aston Martin and for Red Bull, it was like a tale of 2 different races because you had like Max doing awesome, and then at the other end, like you just said, Checo. I mean, he was bounced around everywhere. He started last. He in the pits 5 times, and then Stroll doesn't even finish. He's bounced around all over the place. So for those teams, it's like 2 completely different races. But unlike them, which we'll get to them in a little bit more detail in a second, but McLaren, they both finished in the points. So I think that's a couple races in a row, maybe? I don't remember where they finished in Miami.
Yeah, McLaren both finished in the points. Ferrari both finished the points. Of course, Gasly got points this time.
Yeah.
But actually, Alpine both got points this time.
Yeah. We'll definitely talk about them. Yuki, my little global treasure who finished second in Q1 or 2 qualifying. I don't even remember.
And then
he was doing pretty good. Like he was running 8th and then 9th. And then all of a sudden it started to rain and it's like, he just lost his confidence. He just got,
as soon as he got passed, they got pushed to 10th and then 11th. And as soon as the commentator said, oh, he's been in this situation before, when he said 11th, it was like, bam.
Yeah.
It knocked him. He's just like,
that sucks.
It's almost like he hurt him.
Yeah.
No.
On that radio message, when I think the team was telling him to push, because they knew Lando was right on his tail end, and they were telling him to push, and Yuki's like, "Wow!"
Yeah.
My dog started barking, so I didn't hear.
He said something along. Yeah, he was something along the lines of like he's trying. They were talking about like he's such a comedian. You know, the way he was responding, that he's like kind of comical in the way he responds. But yeah. Yeah, he was almost like, I'm pushing as hard as I can, guys. It's not like I'm not trying, you know. He's like, I am, you know. Like,
it was tough out there. It was tough out there for all of them. I mean, you even saw Max kind of slipping. Like some of the bigger names were slipping too. So I get it. But I think that De Vries had a fairly decent weekend, and I'm kind of hoping that he's showing the progress that they wanted to see. And also, since we didn't have Imola, I feel like the deadline, if that was true, that they were giving him until, through Barcelona to show some progress. I'm hoping they give him at least another race after that. But he held his own, and I think he only ended up finishing 2 spots down from Yuki. And I mean, over the weekend, he did all right. He made it to Q2, like for qualifying. So I'm hoping that they're seeing some progress. But at the same time, Monaco is a track that he should be very familiar with because he won F2, he's won Formula E, and both of those race at that track. But again, very different. I think different cars. F1 cars are very different from F2, obviously different from Formula E. But I'm hoping that he buys him a little bit more time, and we'll see how he does in Barcelona.
We'll see. We'll see how that goes. It was interesting. You got to see his more animated self, though, for sure.
I like a little animation. What else? Mercedes, again, we talked about them a little bit, but they did good. They finished 4th.
They did. It was interesting, the strategy, though. It was like with hearing, George pushing to try to go past Hamilton, and it was almost, you didn't hear the radio, but it sounded like that, Hamilton was acquiescing for it, but then George wasn't able to finish past him.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting because I think George is proving to be a good driver, a really good driver.
Yeah.
Hamilton's, got the legacy of being a multi-world champion.
Yeah.
I just, it makes me wonder how much longer Hamilton plans to stay in the sport if he continues to have like this lackluster car. And
Yeah.
then you have these rumors, and then you've got Max talking about how, he may choose to, venture into other areas of motorsport. I don't know if Hamilton's ever considered that or, I don't know. I just kind of wonder.
I don't know if I've ever heard him talk about going into other parts of motorsport because I think he's got so many other things going on, right? He's really involved in like that movie. And so he's got all these other things. I know he's invested in like a vegan restaurant. One just opened in New York. He's got his 44, his foundation that he started. Yeah. So like he has, and probably a million other things in the works. Like, so I don't know if he would do that, but I don't know when he's going to say he's ready to stop. Like,
yeah,
I think he still has that drive, and it's kind of like Mercedes is for sure intent on bringing their car back to its traditional like status, right? They want to be at the top, and I think I feel like he'd be willing to stick with them, give them his input as a 7-time world champion on how to make that car great, and then let's see what happens. I don't know.
Maybe these recent changes, both in the personnel and the refocusing, maybe they'll have some turnaround.
Yeah. And Russell, he had a 5-second penalty because of an unsafe rejoin. So when he came out of the
pit, point.
But that didn't affect his standings at all. Who was behind him? Charles? No. I think Charles was like 11 seconds behind him.
Okay. Yeah, because he the difference is he was Hamilton was plus 39 off the lead, and George ended up with plus 56, so he would have been plus 51, so without the penalty. And then Charles was plus 61, so he would have been, instead of 5 seconds behind George, he would have been 10 seconds behind. So it didn't affect anything.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think it did because I remember thinking Charles was about 11 seconds. So perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ferrari.
Don't say your what's your notes. Your initials.
I'm just going to say the initials. In my notes, I put WTF because I don't know what is happening with this team, with their strategy. We talked about Charles and the miscommunication with Javi. Not even miscommunication. Zero communication from Javi during qualification. Qualification. That sounded weird. Qualifying. I'm
almost like, what are his qualifications right now? Because like, what the heck?
But today seemed to be all about Sainz. Like he wanted that podium. He's, I think, 2 times been on the podium the last 2 races in Monaco. He wanted that podium. We both had him finishing on the podium in our predictions.
I just had this feeling he was going to push it. Like the way he was showing in qualifying and just his drive. I just had this thing that he was going to.
And he was like towards the very beginning, like he was very aggressive in trying to pass Ocon. And I kind of wish he would have held off a little bit because he ended up bumping into Ocon. Carlos broke off the front end of his wing plate. What I thought was interesting is they opted to stay out. So it wasn't affecting his time in keeping up with Ocon. So that was kind of interesting. But Carlos also was very much advocating for staying out. He's like, it's fine. Like, give me the data. I think it's fine. And that is one thing I do like about Carlos is to me, he's like a mini Fernando where he will talk strategy. He knows what's going on. He's very good at that strategy while he's driving, and telling his team like, nope, I'm staying out. I'm not coming in right now. Let's let it go and let's see what happens. So good for him. But then they pitted him. And well, first they fake pitted him. So they were said, let's pit.
Fake pitted, and then another time they told him to pit, and he says, no, I'm staying. And then when they told him to pit, it was just like he was not happy.
No, he was so mad. So after he was trying to come out of the pits, he wanted to get in front of Ocon. Ocon was having an amazing race, right? A brilliant drive, I think, from Ocon, and he passed him. So Sainz came out behind Ocon, and he was not happy. And I think you have that audio because I asked Claire to grab this because you can hear how mad he is. And I think these Ferrari drivers are over the BS with this team. They're over the strategy issues. And they're going to be more vocal about it.
Exactly what I talked about. Exactly what I talked about.
Slow intro, Hamilton 1.4 behind. The main target there was to cover Hamilton. Hamilton 1 second behind.
I don't care about Hamilton. I was weak.
Carlos Sainz Jr. is absolutely fuming with Ferrari's strategy. He is not happy that he's lost his best overtaking opportunity against Esteban Ocon.
I think that gives us a...
And again, like, why are you trying to cover Hamilton? Hamilton's kind of a non-issue. The person he's been trying to get past this entire race is Ocon. And
if you're ahead of Ocon, then you're past Hamilton. I mean, the two are covered at that point. So
exactly. So I don't get what is happening. And there was another conversation after that. I think you could hear it better than me, where Carlos was asking about Charles or the pace of the car.
Yeah, the pace of Charles. I could play that. And he was asking Charles's pace, and he was arguing that what he thought it was, and then he makes reference to the incident from that got Charles's penalty.
Yeah.
So there's this one.
Okay. They eliminated that opportunity.
What is Charles' pace?
Charles Leclerc 17.5 in free air.
I was doing 65.
Carlos Sainz last year debating the strategy with the team on the radio, and it led to the awkward double stacking moment where it was the angriest we've ever heard Charles Leclerc on the radio because he had lost his chance of winning his home race. 1 year later, operationally, questions posed for Ferrari. Charles Leclerc not told of Lando Norris directly behind him in the tunnel yesterday. Carlos Sainz openly, he knows the world is hearing that radio message when he presses the button.
Yep. And that's the thing, is they are being more vocal. So after Miami, Charles was very kind of open about how he and Carlos had talked, and they said there's major issues with this car. They need to figure it out. Carlos was then asked about it in Miami, and you could tell he will play things close to the vest. He's not going to say anything against his team publicly. And they said, well, Charles already told us that you two talked. And he was like, oh, you did? And just like the commentator said, he knows when he hits this button that people are going to hear this. And it's not just us. The other teams, the pit walls, they hear what is being said from the other teams. And it's ridiculous. And they ended up doing a double stack when they switched tires to the rain tires today. So they called Charles in first. So they were kind of, actually, Carlos looked like he was trying to get ahead of Charles because they were 1-2 behind each other. And Charles went in first, and Carlos had to come in because they were sliding all over the place.
That's what he was asking. It's like, what is Charles's pace? 75. He goes, well, mine's 65. Like,
yeah.
Why are you stacking us that way? Because I have a faster pace. Like, what's going on here? Yeah.
I feel like, and this is my team, so I hate to say it, but I feel like somebody's on the take. Somebody's on the make on that. Is it the make or the take? Somebody's on the take on that pit wall. I think somebody has got it in for the team, and I don't understand why. It is absolutely awful, and I kind of don't want to see all the Formula One meme pages that I follow because they are actually keeping track of all the strategy issues that Ferrari has this year, and this is going to be added to it.
Yep.
I'm so sad because he should have been up there. And he did have that little slide in the rain, and he's very, very lucky. His car just kind of slowed up against that wall. Yeah. He didn't really hit it hard, but he lost some more places there. I mean, it just went from bad to worse.
I know, and I was just like, I'm not even going to send you an exclamation points on that one because you'll catch up to me, and I'm just going to be like, yeah.
It's so sad. So I am sitting here, and I follow Ferrari. I get their alerts, and I saw a little thing pop up that said Charles talks about Monaco, but I haven't seen one that says Carlos does. And I missed the interviews afterwards. I think you might have watched, but I had to go out and water my plants before it got too hot. So I don't know. I mean, they have to go and talk, but I don't know if Carlos or Charles said anything.
I watched the top three, and then
Okay.
I got started getting ready for this, so I didn't go watch
Yeah.
all of them.
I'll probably go
I'll
back
go
and
back
watch
and watch
that.
them.
But very different. Well, kind of different for Aston Martin, your team. Like I said, tale of two races.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's poor poor Stroll.
Oh gosh.
But it was, it was just like, he's. It was so weird at the end too, because like when he hit at the end, even the people were, the commentators were like, "Oh, it looks like he's having a little bit of an issue, and it's looked like the grip." And then there wasn't anything else said, and then all of a sudden, the next thing you see is him walking down on the side of the docks. It's like, wait, what happened? He's out.
I mean, at that point, I feel like I would have just been like, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah.
Like he did hit, and then his car. They thought it might be an idling issue because his car kind of like pushed him over to the opposite side, and he kind of dinged that wall. I mean, they weren't major hits, but he probably was just like, you know what? Like,
Yeah.
let's just be done.
But I'm just I'm just so happy about Alonso, and he's just great with his positive attitude and just saying, look where we're at, and look, we got P2, and then his team even said, hey, and P1 is next, and
yeah,
so like I had to be bold because we told everybody last week, and I called it out, like if we get P1 at Barcelona, then I will get a tattoo. In fact, I'm gonna try to come up with a couple designs that will have everybody, that people are willing to vote. They can vote on which one it would be.
Yeah.
I boldly put it out on their Instagram.
Yes.
So it's out there. I can't back out now.
It's so awesome, and I about fell over when I heard them say, next is victory, and we're like, oh, Barcelona victory, yes. I mean, honestly, he could not. Oh, there's a cute little quail walking in my yard.
And they said it would be the oldest driver on the podium since Monaco. They said since 1917. That's so mind blowing, because back then it was not even F1. It was just more Grand Prix. That's what it was called, because it wasn't F1, I think, until the 1930s.
Yeah.
So that's really fascinating.
It's incredible. And this was his first start on the front row at Monaco since 2007. My daughter was 7. Now she's grown adult out of college. That's how long this man, I mean, he's been in the sport longer, but it's like, that's the time frame of like, she would have been in 2nd grade, and now she's a grown adult with an actual job out of college. Like,
it's crazy.
But he could not have done anything different. He was fabulous, absolutely fabulous today. Oh
yeah, and I loved it when he came out of Q3. He's like, I pushed it as hard as I could. It was, like he's like he like pushed it really hard. He pushed it hard, man. 1 minute 11. That was amazing. That shows you how close that car is, man. Like how it's so close. So it's truly the second fastest car on the grid.
Which is amazing. And I think like all season so far, when I see pictures of the team, whether it's the pit crews or, just the team as a whole, like when they get together for the ceremony, or even when they've shown a couple things back at their offices, you can just tell like the culture looks amazing. I mean, everybody loves it when you're winning, right? Like, but they have been through some tough times. And I think they said that a couple years ago, like Aston Martin, like they were looking at laying off, like administration didn't have a job. And now look where they are. So they've been through some tough times, but now like the joy on everybody's face at that team is amazing.
I love the new t-shirt line is him holding his arms up. Because he's always so, I love it.
Is that the one for?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I try to buy everything on sale, but that one I might have to buy full price.
I know. Well, believe me, I thought about getting one for Barcelona, but I was like, it would never get here in time. But so maybe while we're there, we'll see.
I'm seeing the trend here. I might have to call this a Tale of Two, Monaco and the Tale of Two. Name of this episode, because here's another Tale of Two.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the Red Bull.
Perez. I mean, what?
Poor Checo.
We did talk about him a little bit, but like starting at the back and then getting bumped around, and you said 5 pit stops, like
5 pit stops.
Stop for him. And then Max wins by like 20 something seconds.
And still to move up that many spots. I mean,
How many spots did he move up?
He moved up from 20th to 16th.
Ooh, that'll be kind of good for my fantasy team though, because you get points for moving up.
Now, two racers didn't finish, so I mean, there's that. But still,
But
I mean, he moved
it
up
doesn't
4
matter.
spots. So
It's still a spot.
that's pretty good. Yeah,
That's
I just
awesome.
I feel bad for him. Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely not the race you want to have. But you know what? Maybe then that means next week he comes back and he's like ready to get it. And then Max, like, what do we say about Max? Like, Max won by how many seconds? 20 something, 26 seconds?
27.9.
Yeah, 27.9 seconds in Monaco. He was lapping the back of the pack 30 laps in. Like, yay, Max wins again. I'm kind of tired of hearing the Dutch Grand National Anthem. It's very beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I just don't want to hear it anymore. So,
speaking of music, I did like how that they were played the had the band playing.
Yeah,
at the end. That was really cool.
I love that. Okay, but very quickly before we move on to like just a little bit beyond the grid, and then we're going to talk about Barcelona really fast. But Alpine, what a race! It was Ocon-ic. I'm starting a new word. It's Ocon-ic. He was amazing. He flawless all the way through, like Q3 on, like just incredible. But what I'm hoping is that they both finished in the points. Pierre finished what, 7th?
Yes.
Okay, so 3rd and 7th. I'm hoping that this takes a little bit of pressure off of Otmar and the rest of the team, because as we talked about for the Miami race, their president of Alpine came out and was like, this is trash. Everything's trash. We are not doing well. People need to step it up, or basically people are going to get fired. Not the drivers, but for sure team principal, maybe some other spots. So Ocon even had a really, really slow pit stop towards the beginning. It was 4.2 seconds. And as he started to pull away, one of the crew members was just like visibly shaking his head like he was mad, because 4.2 seconds is a lot of time. Yeah. Monaco is kind of a short, you don't lose as much time in a pit stop, but when it's 4.2 seconds, you sure as heck do. And he still finished 3rd. So good job, Alpine. Way to go.
They have 35 points, which is double, just 1 point more than double McLaren.
Wow.
And they're in 5th. Mercedes is 1 point behind Aston Martin, by the way.
Oh, they're good. They're going to be neck and neck for 2nd place. And see, we talk about like Mercedes, oh, they're doing so bad. They're freaking fighting for 2nd place in the constructor. That is not that bad.
And Alpine drivers are 9th and 10th right now in the standings.
Could you imagine if they had finished in Australia? Because they were both in line for points.
Yeah, it's Red Bull, Aston Martin, Mercedes, Ferrari, Aston Martin, Alpine.
Wow.
Those are the drivers.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's incredible.
That is incredible. Oh, one more stat for Max. He now has 39 wins with Red Bull. That puts him ahead of Seb's record at Red Bull. He had 38. So they were tied after Miami. So beyond the grid in Monaco, there was that celebrity football match. Kind of talked about that. So Charles, Pierre, Carlos played, a couple like reserve drivers or academy drivers. The pictures that were going around
and the memes. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that was hysterical. Poor Charles got tripped. Some people say Pierre did it, even though they were on the same team, but Pierre says no, it wasn't him. But the picture that everybody captured was basically, it looked like Charles was on his face. Yep. Carlos had a quad injury.
Yeah,
so he said somebody bumped into him. But on Thursday, he was walking with an umbrella, like a tall umbrella. So possibly using it as like a little cane. And he was limping, according to a photographer there. So that was kind of interesting. I feel so bad. I meant to send you so many pictures because like Lewis, Esteban, and Pierre were all at Cannes. Esteban's mom. Oh my gosh. This is why I should live in France, because French women are freaking beautiful. I was like, that's not his.
Did you go find the picture? Did you go find the picture of no, did you go find the picture of Fernando's dad?
Oh, I did. Yeah. Like, I don't think we had the same impression, but maybe I don't know what Esteban's mom's situation is, but maybe her and Fernando's dad, we could set them up.
I don't
know
think
what
he
her
was bad for
situation
his
is.
age. Put it that
She's
way.
she's probably married, but I will be putting. So usually on Monday mornings, I do like a little fashion recap of my favorite fashions. And I am going to put like Lewis and Esteban and Pierre. They all just looked amazing at Cannes. And I have a confession to make also. And I go back and forth on this, but my confession is Danny Rick is making me like Max. There, I said it. Off the track. I don't think I still like him on the track, but I think off the track,
yeah.
he's making me more likable. He is. Yeah. He is. They laugh like schoolgirls. They giggle and they have so much fun. And they were talking. I saw another video of them, and they were saying something about we should have our initials. And Max is like, it could be M and D, and Danny's like DM, and Max goes, DM me, and like they're just so cute together.
I get that off the track. If he could just keep that, like, not be such a jerk on the track, that would be good. Yeah.
I mean,
Danny's working on him.
That's where I struggle. But yeah, I think they realize, like Red Bull realizes, Danny is so amazing, and they obviously get along very well. So they are pushing that media out there. So yeah, very fun. Very fun.
Right. Barcelona.
Next week. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. So we'll be there. Like I said, sorry, not sorry for all the content that we're going to be bringing you. We'll probably mostly do it on our Instagram page because I don't know if we'll have time to do TikToks. TikToks. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll figure it out. So
follow us on there if you're not following us. But here's the breakdown for the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya. It's a lot of these drivers are very, very familiar with this track because the last few years they've gone to, is it Abu Dhabi? I don't know. They've gone to the Middle East for practice. They used to always go to Barcelona for practice. So for most of these drivers, they're very, very used to this track. So they know how that track, what they need to do. So that I thought was kind of cool. There's 66 laps, 2 DRS zones. It's a very good mix of high and low speed corners. The final corner, which is where we are going to be sitting, they've removed the chicane there. So it's not going to slow them down. It's going to be another high, fast corner as they're gunning down to the start finish line. So
lots of speed in that corner where we're going to be sitting.
Yes. So I cannot wait for that. F2 and F3 are also racing, and they're going to be doing a sprint style race. So that'll be kind of fun because there's definitely some drivers that I want to watch. Obviously Arthur Leclerc, Ollie Bierman, some of those like Ferrari drivers. I think that's going to be really, really fun to watch some of that stuff. So excited about that. And it's a home race for Carlos and Fernando. So yay, 2 of my favorites. And then, gosh, who knows with Alpine? Hopefully they can translate. I would love to see them get up there. And again, if Fernando wins,
it's right here. That's
Claire's getting the tattoo.
That's the spot. And then it'll be always seen. Like it says, if I wear short sleeves, I've got the spot right here. Because it's like right below that tattoo. Right
I love it.
Right above this tattoo, because I got one here. I got a spot right here.
Yes. So you're going to work on some designs later this week. We'll put them up. We don't want to jinx anything or anything like that. We're manifesting, not jinxing. And so we'll put those up, and I'm really
I mentioned it to someone at work, and they're like, "Oh, I'm manifesting it now too."
Same. Actually, one of our listeners said the same. She sent a message and said, "I'm manifesting for Fernando." So maybe that's what it is. Today he got second. Next week it's first. The whole city will go nuts if he wins. I mean, absolutely crazy. So yeah, I can't wait. We better start Googling tattoo parlors in Barcelona.
All right. Well, you will be here in like
a day,
36 hours.
Yay! I know. I've got so much stuff to do. I got to get moving, but
me too.
Yeah.
All right. We just got to work on the name of this and to get it ready to go. And I will see you in 36 hours.
Yes. All right. Next week, Barcelona.
Good to see everyone. Thanks for coming along on the longest ride, but we appreciate everybody. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and a review. To stay up to date with She Loves the Grid and get all the behind the scenes content, you can follow us on Instagram at She Loves the Grid and on Facebook at facebook.com/She Loves the Grid. Thank you for joining us for the ride this week.